Denji and his team were being overwhelmed by the Katana Devil and Akane, who used the power of the Snake Devil. Himeno was running out of options. Aki was in danger. The only chance she had was to use more power. More of the power of the Ghost Devil that she had made a contract with. Although sadly she knew what this would cost her. Many moments began to flash in her mind as Himeno thought about her decision. There wasn't much to think about in terms of what she was going to do. She merely thought about what it would cost her. This life was a lonely one. It wasn't the type of life where you were expecting to live happily ever after, especially in this line of work. Sadly enough, everyone met this fate at some point in time. One way or another, you'd find yourself dying in the line of duty. The only question was, were you going to roll over, or were you going to go out with a bang? Or in this case, a whisper. Himeno looked over to Aki, who lay on the ground, having extinguished almost all of his energy trying to fend off against the Katana Devil, his cursed sword no longer bearing any result. She saw Denji that lied on the ground, still recovering. Without a thought, she contacted the Ghost Devil, telling it that now was the time. She was ready to pay in full. The Ghost Devil accepted, and Himeno watched as her limbs began to fade, disappearing into the nothing one by one, in exchange for ultimate power. She would move Aki out of the way, as well as grabbing on Denji's ripcord, pulling it on his chest and causing his chainsaw powers to awaken. Finally, she set her sights on Akane and the Snake Devil, hoping to take it down with her. Akane would have to sacrifice another fingernail to use more of the Snake Devil's power, but it would be worth the result. The Snake Devil having the unique ability to not only eat other devils, as it had tried to do with the Fox Devil that Aki had tried to summon once again, but it now managed to consume the Ghost Devil as well. In the meantime, Makima had finally arrived to Kyoto. Although the associates who had been waiting for her, they were a little perturbed to see her covered in blood, but she seemed as daisy as roses, as she smiled happily, asking for a change of clothes, and also for as many death row inmates as they could get, and to bring them to a private shrine. It was time for her to play her part in this matter, to launch a counter-strike against those who had attempted to attack the Devil Hunters. They did as was told, and eventually all the death row inmates were brought into this temple. The two associates, however, had to make sure that their eyes were blindfolded, that they were turned around, and that they couldn't see Miss Makima in action. They already knew the reason why. There was no point in going into any detail. Miss Makima had power. She had made a contract with the devil, but no one knew what it was, and she preferred to keep it that way. It was a top secret of high priority. Under no circumstances was anyone ever allowed to see her use her power in any which way, shape, and form. Now, of course, even her power had limits. There were great forces out there in the world that she couldn't easily take out, even with the power she had now. But still, for what it could do, it would be more than sufficient. She walked to each inmate one by one, having them say a name, before taking her hands and pressing them together. Francis, aka the Katana Devil, along with Akane, watched as their associates were starting to drop one by one. Denji, already revved up and looking to get his get back, would try to go charging in for a sneak attack on the Katana Devil, although sadly, he would wind up being half of a man, as his whole body was cut in half from the torso. Now left with no legs and no way to move, they attempted to take his upper half and leave, but sadly enough, the escape would be a lot easier said than done, as their associates continued to die one by one, exploding almost sporadically. They were able to deduce that this was none other than the work of Makima, but more so, how on earth had she been able to do it? They had a foolproof plan to take her out. And then there was Kobeni, the last few still left standing. But for Kobeni, when pushed to the edge, she entered into another gear, another mode. It was a state of being that she couldn't control or fathom. Everything would go blank for her. She would operate as if she were nothing more but a hollow husk of a human being. With nothing but a Glock and a switchblade, Kobeni would go on the offensive, not only managing to save Denji, but managing to fend off the enemies, landing a good few shots and forcing them to retreat. Of course, for Kobeni, once all the action was over, she quickly realized where she was and started to have a horrible breakdown mentally. This was just starting to become too much for her. The poor girl couldn't take it anymore. Kobeni never wanted to be in this life. She never wanted to do any of this. But unfortunately, her parents dubbed that she was the useless one, that she had no talent and that it would be a waste of time to send her to college or to try to live a normal life. No, that was reserved for her brother. And because of that, they forced her to work any job that could help pay for his tuition. For Kobeni, she had no life. She had no freedom. She had virtually nothing. Nothing to her name. Nothing but a useless high school degree and working as a devil hunter. It was a pathetic existence. In fact, one of the few things that she prided herself on was her car. And even then, people thought that the car was more useful than her. Heck, there were times when people would come over to her house just to take the car, and they'd leave Kobeni at the house. She wouldn't see that car for days until it came back. And even though the car was inanimate, if she didn't know any better, she could have sworn the car was smiling, like the car was having the time of her life. Her own damn car had more freedom than she did. But that was the state of the world. A world without heroes. A world filled with nothing but devils and bastards looking for a come-up. That was their existence. When all the fighting had finally settled down, the Devil Hunter Association had taken a lot of losses. More so on their human side. Those who were non-human or otherworldly, they managed to survive relatively unscathed. A few stragglers, to say the least. Anyone that did survive the attack, well, they started to quit. And they didn't just quit, they quit in droves. Today, they came to a realization. This was just beyond them. They were humans. Humans who just didn't have the power to keep up. They didn't have the power to keep up with devils, with mutants, with metahumans, with monsters, aliens, robots, all this nonsense. They didn't have that power before the world went to pot, and they didn't have it now. I mean, if you couldn't even fight against something like a tomato devil, what the hell are you going to do against some of these big-time bosses? People just realized their limits. That this type of lifestyle just wasn't for them. And as such, they just decided to give up. Makima accepted all of their resignations. After all, this was a free society. No one was forced to be a devil hunter, and even more so, no one was forced to stay working here. It was a job like any other job. If you wanted to quit, you could quit, unless the circumstances didn't permit that. If you wanted to leave, do something else, have another life, you were more than welcome to. That was your right. But there were some that were wondering, why was Miss Makima so okay with all of this? As if this was something she had been anticipating. The Devil Hunter divisions 1 through 4 were all but decimated. There were only a few stragglers that remained from each division, and as such, the council had decided that now they were going to combine all their forces into one group that would be headed by Miss Makima herself. Those who were still around, well, for Makima, she thought she had gotten the pick of the litter. Anyone that survived all of this, well, they had to be the best of the best, right? The best metahumans, the best fiends, the best devil hunters, the best and most high in quality. All for her pleasure. In the end, for those that quit, it really didn't matter to them. They didn't need to be told that something was coming. They already knew. With the way that the world was going, it was entering into a new phase. There were some that felt like a potential war was already brewing. After all, the few heroes, if you could even call them that were still around in the United States, well, they were all under the puppet regime that was President Fisk. Among them being their most powerful of assets. Off in the Sahara Desert, at an oil rig, a multitude of armed soldiers are all shot down and killed. A few of them, their bodies being diced and decimated. There was only one being left standing. A being that was monstrous in size and shape, who could hardly speak but for broken English. He only spoke a few words and gave a solid salute as an armed team of soldiers secured the area. Good work as always, Captain. Now you can stand down. The American Fiend, Captain America, stood in attention as he gave the salute. Sir, yes, sir. In the meantime, the president sat at his desk. He was on a call with none other than the playboy billionaire Tony Stark. How are the latest developments, Mr. Stark, on that new project I laid out for you? It's going fine, Mr. President. In fact, I like to think that we'll be done ahead of schedule. Though I gotta say, this is awfully risky, you know. We've been in a Cold War with the Soviet Union for well over a decade and a half now. Are you really sure you want to break that streak? The time for standing back is brought to an end, Mr. Stark. I believe it's time for us to go on the offensive once more. We need to produce more fear into the world. Fear of what we can do. Fear is what grows our strength. Fear is what makes us stronger. But we still have enemies that do not fear us. Are you worried about the likes of the Soviets or the Japanese? Or the mutants? Or I take it you're still beefing with that blind guy? He has been a thorn in my side for a while now. His little group called the Hand. They hide in the shadows using hit-and-run tactics. Well, what are you going to do against the man that has no fear? I'm going to beat it into him. If he wants to start a war, he'll get one. But I promise you, he's not going to like it. Because he's not just in a fight with me. This isn't just a fight about some streets in New York. This is a fight for the world. And it's a fight that I intend to win. I haven't come this far just to come this far. I want everything. By the time this term is over, I wish to have all of the Western Hemisphere in the palm of my hands. As for Europe, we'll leave it alone for now. No need to go dragging and knocking on everyone's door. Are you worried about Doom? Trust me, he's going to be making his move soon enough as well. He's no different than you are. Although I will say, Latveria, it'll be a hard place to get into. A lot easier said than done. Say, if you don't mind me asking, what exactly is the next phase? You're the genius. Why don't you figure it out? I have a pretty good idea. And I mean, it's all up to you, whatever you decide to do. If you want to destroy the entire world, well, that's your prerogative. All I know is, I'll be left standing when it's all said and done. I can finally pick up where you primitive humans left off, and I can make the world a better place. You think so? What we need is a suit of armor. You choose to hide behind your shell, Mr. Stark. I will do no such thing. Let me know when you are completed. Yes, Mr. President. Back at the headquarters for the Devil Hunters Association, 4th Division, Makima sat at her desk as there was a knock on her door. She asked for whoever knocked to come in, and inside walked a woman dressed in black, with pale skin and what appeared to be a red dot, like a blotched spot on her left eye. She smiled happily, Makima already knowing who this was, but still a little surprised that she, of all people, would be at her door. Miss Domino. I'm so happy that you've come to pay me a visit, though I must say I wasn't actually expecting one. I know. I decided to drop in at the spur of the moment, because I know that you're the type of woman who's always looking to collect and make a deal, so I thought maybe I could broker one with you. And from the looks of things, it looks like you could use a hand. Is that right? So, what exactly would you like to make a deal for, Miss Domino? I know that a woman of your talents, you're being sought after by a lot of reputable people these days. Well, as I'm sure you can tell, I like to consider myself a bit of a free agent, and I like to offer my services to the highest bidder. You mean the side that you think is going to win? Do you have that much confidence in us? Indeed I do. I'd like to join your little organization. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I have to say, if I'm able to get a woman of your talents within my team, I'd be a fool to turn you down. Makima would stand from her desk and walk over to Domino as she held out her hand. We're more than welcome to have you. Welcome to the new Devil Hunting Task Force. Both would shake hands with one another, smiling aimlessly. But little would you know that behind those smiles lied sinister intentions, neither one knowing what the other was truly up to. But sometimes that was the beauty of the game, because you never knew what was going to happen next. This concludes Chainsaw Man, Son of Deadpool, What If Denji Was Deadpool, Season 1, Part 7. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue with Chainsaw Man, Son of Deadpool. What If Denji Was Deadpool, Season 1, Part 8. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.